Hello, everybody. It is Thursday, and this is the pre-show. I'm here with Stacey.
Hello.
Hello. Bonjour. Bonjourne. Hello to everybody in the chat. Who do we see here? Dave Portella. Good to see you. Hello. And Stacey, I see you commenting, so that's good. You're working all the levels right now. And then so we got 4 years right now, 6 years tuning in. So as everybody.
Your audio just cut out, Ryan. Ryan, you're on mute. Ryan, can you hear me?
Oh, my mic turned off. Why did my mic turn off?
Could you hear me? I was trying to...
Can you hear me, Cece?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Hello.
Yeah. No, now you're muted again.
Okay, can you hear me now? Is that good?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Let me know if you can hear me. That's why we do this.
Yes.
All right. So that was our pre-show because we have technical difficulties, but we're going to head into the show. So we'll see you in a little bit here in just a few short minutes. All right.
Tonight we will go deep into the realm of the unknown and question everything as we search for the truth. We will explore the possibility of countless phenomena within the ultra spectrum, and together we will learn that it is all connected. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencer Support Association, and it is a live stream broadcast. If you have a question, send me a super chat or become a YouTube member. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencer Support Association. Take a seat, relax, get ready, and welcome to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat.
Hello, everybody. Today is Thursday, February 24th, 2022, and I, Ryan Stacey, am your host this evening. I'm a licensed private investigator, a citizen journalist, and the Director of Investigations for the Experiencer Support Association. I'm also the former National Chief Investigator for MUFON Canada and the former International Field Investigator Trainer for MUFON in general. Welcome to the channel, and thank you for joining us this evening. To super chat, click the $ next to your name in the comment box. And if you are in the observation deck, we are inside the Experiencer Hall. Go and put your comments and questions in the chat box. Tonight's theme is hybrids, implants, and ET contact. Our guest for season 4, episode 7 is Les Velez. I hope I said that right. I got that. Les is a graduate of the University of Vermont with a Bachelor of Science degree in business administration. Beginning in September of 1970, he served in the U.S. Army as a field artillery officer and was later vice president of Luscombe Engineering, a Silicon Valley-based manufacturer representative company. He joined MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, in 1991 and has held the following positions: field investigator, training coordinator for field investigators, assistant state director in Northern California, chairman of the A.E.R.C, which is Abduction Experiencer Research Committee, and team leader of the A.R.T, Abduction Response Team. Also, during that time, he became a facilitator for an abduction support group in San Jose, California, and in 1994 co-founded OPUS, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support. So what's interesting about this bio is this guy is doing a bunch of things in the past that I had no idea even existed, and then somewhere along the line in 2015, I did similar things and created the Experiencer Support Association. So I'm going to, without further ado, we're going to have a conversation from the past to the future and figure out where we're going to end up. So Les, put on your tinfoil hat. How are you doing this evening?
Good. Thank you for having me, Ryan. Look forward to our conversation.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here. I apologize to everybody for the pre-show for that little mishap there. I don't know what happened. There's always a lot of energy and technical issues when I'm excited. So I was really excited for this show. So I'm assuming that's what's going on. So, like Les, the first place that I want to go, obviously, I think we have similar lifestyles. In the sense, I served in the Army as well, but you were in the past, and I haven't. But you're still doing it now, and I haven't heard of OPUS until recently. So it's kind of. But when I heard about OPUS, I didn't realize that you were also part of MUFON. So now me learning that this week when I set you up for that, I'm really excited to talk about that, and I'm hoping that the conversation I'll be able to share some of the experiences and stuff because you've been. With MUFON in a different time, and I don't know where you're at with that now, and a lot of things have changed. So where do you want to start?
Well, I think you kind of led me into this avenue to explain a little bit about the past, and then we'll go into the future. Okay. When I was 11 years old, now really going into the past, back in the late 50s, I saw something. It scared the hell out of me. And it caused me to go to the library and start reading about UFOs. And, George Adamski was the big UFO proponent at that point, talking about the Venusians, and his books were fascinating to me. And so, life goes on, and, next thing I know, I'm in college, and then I'm in the service, and then I get married. And in 1985, I moved from Connecticut, where I was living, out to California, to San Jose. And I picked up the San Jose Mercury News, and Stanton Freeman was going to be talking about UFOs and the government cover-up.
Okay.
And, so that really got me excited. It's like somebody turned the switch on, once again. And so I planned to go to San Jose City College to hear him. And I expected to see just a handful of people there, but the auditorium was packed. He did one of his inimitable lectures, and I came out of there really juiced and ready to, rock and roll. And MUFON happened to have a table in the foyer. And so I found out that they had a monthly journal, and I started to get the journal. And well, after a while, that wasn't enough. And so I found out that they had a field investigator training program. And so I got the manual, and I passed the test. And I was teamed up with a more senior investigator, and we went out to start investigating cases. And almost without exception, the cases turned out to be not only sightings, but people saying that they had contact with non-human intelligences. And that really, really got my interest. And I said, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And these people asked me, did I know of other people having similar experiences? And I said, yes, I do. And that's when I started to facilitate a support group in San Jose in my office, and on Sunday afternoons. And it was amazing. I started to learn more about the phenomena just listening to these people. And one day I was contacted by a journalist at the Monterey Coast Weekly paper. And he came out and interviewed me on what I was doing, for MUFON. And shortly thereafter, I was contacted by a woman who was also written up in the article. And she wanted to know if I could possibly help her understanding what was going on with her brain when she was in contact with these off-earthly entities. And so I said, well, to myself, I said, I'm not sure how I could possibly help this person. And so then she said that she was working with an emergency room doctor down in Carmel. Well, that triggered a remembrance of another doctor friend of mine that was looking to connect with other experiencers or doctors that are familiar with the topic, I should say. And so I called him up and I said, hey, do you want to go down there and talk to this person? And evidently the other doctor that she was working with was going to be there. And so he said, absolutely, let's go down. So we went one Saturday afternoon, and the afternoon was phenomenal. As we walked into her home, there was a picture on the wall. And she was standing on the back of this rather large vessel. And I said, what's this all about? She says, oh, I was helping some treasure hunters down in the Caribbean. And I said, really? How are you doing that? And she said, well, I was in contact with the captain of the galleon that had gone down. So that started the afternoon. And came to find out that when she had a near-death experience, and afterwards she became extremely psychic, and was in contact with numerous off-earthly entities. And so the afternoon even progressed into more wild areas, with the fact that she started to tell us about us individually, certain things about us that there was no possible way that she could know. I didn't know her from Adam, and neither did my doctor friend. So that afternoon, we came away from that experience and said, how can we possibly help people like this? And so the idea of setting up a nonprofit organization came about. And in 1994, we finally put together OPUS, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support. And our mission, simply put, was to help people having paranormal experiences. Now, it wasn't only relegated to the abduction phenomena. You know, in our mission statement on our website, opusnetwork.org, you'll see in our mission statement, we talk about Kundalini awakening, we talk about poltergeist activity, we talk about, you know, all these other parts of the paranormal that are, you know, I believe are all connected. These are all connected in some way, shape, or form. And so what we've been doing as an organization is basically set up a referral network of therapists that we can you know, tell these people when they come to us into our website, where there's a contact area there. Just fill out a short bit of information, and then we'll contact you, and we will refer therapists hopefully in your area. Now, we're always looking for more therapists because we cover the United States and in Europe in some cases, but we're always looking for more therapists that are familiar with the topic. And then the thing that's really worked out well is the fact that we have an online support group which has over 300 people in it, talking 24/7 to one another. It's totally confidential. The only way you get into it is going through us, and we do a triage on the person and then bring them into the group. And so this has turned out to be so helpful for these people. Oh, don't hear you.
I really do appreciate all that you've done. Stacey, I have to bring you in for a second. Can you carry on the conversation? I do apologize. There is an unexpected visitor that I have to go and see. Just carry the conversation. I'll come right back. I promise.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I'll be right back. I do apologize. This is, I don't know what's going on. So I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah, so Les, you were just telling us about OPUS, correct?
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about that?
Well, sure. One of the things, you know, as a nonprofit organization, we are, you know, dependent upon donations. But more recently, I wrote a book called The Unknown Other and the Existential Proposition of Alien Contact. And all the proceeds from that book go directly to OPUS. It's on Amazon. It's also on our website, opusnetwork.org. And basically what I do is I cover, you know, a lot of traditional things, but I also brought in a number of other things, including some of the UAP information that the government put out. I also have the omega-3 study, which was a study that we conducted in 2007-8 timeframe that was funded by MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, where we took 71 people that were basically espoused the fact that they had contact with non-human intelligences, and 51 people that were a control group. And we found out some pretty interesting things. And the bottom line is that these people did not have a psychopathology. They were not fantasy prone. They had a totally different worldview after their experiences, and they felt that there was a sentient, purposive type source that they were in contact with, and that they were more benevolent than malevolent and more benign than malignant. And they had also differences in their temporal lobe activity, which was interesting. So, you know, and right now I'm in the process with a psychologist friend of mine who was involved with the free study, Russell Scalpone, that we've gone out to therapists with a short survey and to find out what they have found to be something that has been helpful to the experiencer and the way they're treated. And of course, the one thing we found out right away is that the experiencers were looking to reduce stress, but they were looking also for an empathetic listener, someone to really listen to their stories, because in a lot of cases, these people have nowhere to turn. A lot of them have gone to psychologists or psychiatrists, and thinking that they're crazy, but the bottom line they find out is that they're not. And so then what? Where do you go? Where do you go? Who do you turn to? But a lot of times they can't turn to family members, they can't turn to clergy, because they're shunned, or people think they're crazy. And so the bottom line is that this type of organization is something that's very important to these people, and something that they can turn to and get the kind of help that they're looking for.
That's awesome. So the book, The Unknown, is that some of your study in there? Is that a
Yes.
breakdown of
Yeah,
OPUS
the
study?
omega-3 study is in there. That's the first study. The omega-4, which is the follow-on, how clever of us to come up with that, is something that we're in the process of doing. And the second phase of the first phase was going out to therapists. The second phase will be going out to their clients and getting that feedback. And so we will be not only publishing that, in the peer-reviewed journals, but we will certainly have it on our website. And the omega-3 study is on our website, again, opusnetwork.org. This whole topic is something that, I think is so important for people to understand that there is a resource out there, and there are other organizations that are doing similar things, and it's almost like we don't have the word out as well as we should or can, and we're trying to assess that and how we do go out, and I'm doing shows like this to talk about the organization and what we do. And we have some pretty interesting people involved. Linda Moulton Howe is on our advisory board. Melinda Leslie is on our advisory board. Terry Lovelace is on our advisory board. Yvonne Smith is on our advisory board. Yeah, these are our board members right now. Geraldine Orozco. So we are blessed to, having these great people with us, and we are, constantly looking for more. Russell Scalpone is our newest board member, and so we're really pleased. And here's the list of the board members that we have right now. And in the beginning, when we got started, we had Bud Hopkins on our advisory board, David Jacobs on our advisory board. Matter of fact, in the book, I talk about the beginning of Opus and in much more detail as far as who was involved and the types of things we were doing. And then I go into the physical aspects of the abduction, the psychological aspects of it. And I have about 25 stories from people in our support group that have talked about their experiences, I should say, and the things that they have, found out, gained from these experiences.
I do have a question. Cece, thank you for stepping in. I do apologize for that. Someone, the police showed up, and it was the wrong address. So my cameras went off, and my wife's downstairs, and I see that there's police officers showing up. So I had to run downstairs to figure out what the heck that was all about in the middle of that. But it turns out it was the wrong address. So I apologize for that. But thank you for stepping in. You can stay in if you want. My question for you, Les, is I feel this. This is I can't say the exact same reason, but it's along the same path that I had with MUFON. Is it started with UFOs, and then you get involved and you realize it's a lot bigger. There's a lot more out there. It's a lot more intricate. and you really need to tackle it from many different angles. So does MUFON, like, maybe I missed this when I went downstairs and I came back up, but did MUFON at all assist with OPUS, or do they help now, or like where did that relationship separate, if it or is it still together? Like, how does that work?
Well, okay, that's a good question. In about 2007, I approached James Carrion, who was the international director of MUFON, and I talked to him about the fact that MUFON has pretty much been a nuts and bolts type organization, and that I thought they were missing the boat on not investigating and working with these experiencers and finding out more about what they know. And so and MUFON did not have a method of dealing with these people. So when phone calls came in, they were handled haphazardly. So I told him, I said, I'd be happy to take that task on. And so what happened was that they began to send me phone calls, recorded phone calls from people that have contacted the headquarters. And so I started to talk to these people and return their calls and try to help them out as best I could. And so that relationship went on for quite a while. And then finally, MUFON decided, the light bulb went off that they should probably be doing this. And so Kathleen Martin stepped in, and she set up the organization called the E.R.T. It was called the Experiencer Research Team, but now it's the Experiencer Resource Team. And I'm a member of the MUFON E.R.T. as a research consultant now. And since I'm not a field investigator anymore, I pulled out of that.
Was it? Did Kathleen retire from that? Is she? Who's it?
Yeah, she got very busy with other things, and so she passed the baton to Gwen Farrell.
Okay.
And so Gwen is doing it along with George Medich, who has been involved since the beginning as well, and they're doing a great job. And so we have monthly Zoom meetings that I attend as well, and so that relationship has changed, but I'm still involved in a way, and I'm utilizing some of the members of the E.R.T. team, including Kathleen, to look over our survey of not only the therapists, but the upcoming survey that's going to go out to the clients of the therapists that we contact. So it's we're still hanging in there, doing our thing with them, and
that's great. Like, my perspective, because being in Canada, so this is what's blowing my mind, is that like this stuff existed, but because Canada was an international, different organization than national, we were independently run. We had to run it, the way that we did it, but we still had to connect. So I was part of the Experiencer Research Team, and I assisted Kathleen as well, and I met her a few times, especially with Stan Freeman as well here in Canada. But like, I'm notorious for bringing up that word paranormal, because when I was the field investigator trainer, I was always batting around that idea, like, what do we do with the paranormal stuff? And then I met this lovely gentleman by the name of Steve Hutchins, and love him or hate him, but he had a very strong opinion against the word paranormal and all this other stuff, which is me talking about all the things that you just explained, yet it's happening. So what ended up happening to me is I gave up and I created my own here in Canada with the whole plan to eventually, have MUFON participate as well in the future, not knowing until now that that it already existed. So my question is why not help us in Canada contribute, or at least make me aware of it at the time that they already had something? Because I was aware of A.R.T, I was aware of Free, but yet I was not aware of OPUS. Why am I finding that out now?
That's a good question.
Because that would have saved me a hell of a lot of work, I tell you. You know, I could have just joined you from the get-go, and
Right.
then here we go.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of other organizations out there that are probably doing similar things, and we don't know each other, which is a problem. As a matter of fact,
But within the organization, that's what I'm trying to say. Is I've talked to the same people who you're mentioning. Why wouldn't they Why wouldn't they mention that?
Yeah, you know, they have a list of hypnotherapists and support groups in the organization, MUFON A.R.T. And we are listed, OPUS is listed in there as a resource. So, you know, I have no idea. You know, this is the conundrum, I guess, that we all have as far as trying to understand who's doing what to whom, where. And you know, I wish I had an easy answer for that, but I think it's doing things like this, connecting with one another and understanding, oh my God, you've been doing this for years. You know, it's like,
that has always been the challenge. Is a lot of us have our own groups, and a lot of us are trying to do our little parts, and we're trying to help experiencers with a variety of experiences or experience, pardon me, and knowledge and understanding. And we all talk about working together, but we do work together with our own little groups, but we need to bring the groups together.
Yes.
And so that is what the Experiencer Support Association is, the idea behind that, by bringing groups together and regulate investigation. So, as you know, I'm focusing on the regulation. So you mentioned survey, because my other follow-up question is if you're not with MUFON, who does the investigation, who regulates the data? Or do you even collect the data, or is it just strictly support and resources, and the science doesn't matter in that sense because you're providing that service, which is okay?
Yeah, there's two parts of that. The MUFON A.R.T is basically a support mechanism. They've been tasked with collecting data, a standardized list of questions has been put together. And that information, without any names or addresses or anything like that, will be put into the CMS system, okay? Because the confidentiality aspects of this is very important. And so
are your experiencers aware that it's going into MUFON though? After they come to you?
Well, no, if people come to me, okay, in other words, through my OPUS organization, what we do is, as I said, we will refer therapists to these people, and then we have no further contact. And then if they want to go into the support group, we'll put them into the support group, and they're talking to one another 24/7. Okay, and that's it. There's no further contact by me or anybody in our organization. You know, and I monitor all the conversations to make sure that it's you know, remaining neutral. People are, you know, being you know, very open-minded and about the conversations that are going on. If people get on their high horse or start to have problems, then we intervene. But you know, your idea, I think, and I've thought of this too, is that there's got to be a way that there needs to be an international organization that takes all these organizations and, you know, puts them together in some way, shape, or form to understand who's doing what to whom, what resources we each have, how can we share those resources to help these people, because this phenomena is worldwide. There's millions and millions and millions of people having these experiences. And, you know, if you look at the Roper organization that did that study back in the early 90s that Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs started with the help of Robert Bigelow financing it. They said back in those days there was like 6 million people in the United States alone that were having these types of experiences. Well, take a look at where we are today, and it's a worldwide phenomenon. How many other millions and millions of people are having these experiences?
Yeah, it's interesting because like I don't want to say that we are that group, but it's definitely the goal in mind to become that group. Where and the only way that I can comprehend and understand how to regulate is focusing on evidence. So my expertise is in collecting evidence as a private investigator and a policing background and military infantry. So I've created. So obviously you're familiar with the Hynek and Velez classification scale. I've used that for many years. It does not work for paranormal. But I've created what we call the ultra spectrum classification system, which is an advanced classification system. I had many conversations with Paul Hynek to make sure that no offense was taken, and he considers it to be robust to enhance. It includes Velez system, and it also includes the concepts of John Keel in his super spectrum. So what I've done is I've created an evidence-based system that allows us to repackage whatever system anyone else uses to break it down into a universal language. As an example, UFO and UAP. Those are two words used to describe the same thing. Someone might call it a UFO, someone might call it a UAP, or the paranormal people might just call it a paranormal orb, a ghost orb. But yet, what makes that in common between everybody is that it's in the sky. So we call it aerial activity. And then when we look into the methods, like some people can see it and take pictures of it, some people can hear it, but other people are seeing it in their mind. And in order to make that credible, we've established a sensory category, so to allow what we're calling psychogenic. So the mental possibility of seeing it in your mind, and then we work through our investigating process. Then we're able to compare the visuals, where it doesn't really matter the methods, but then it brings everybody back together. So that way, MUFON. So you say MUFON for an example, who calls it a UFO? We can do a work, repackage it, and we can and repackage and do a whole group thing, and then give it back to MUFON and say, okay, this. Even though it's a paranormal orb, we can speak their language. Right. So part of that is regulating the language. We need a universal, because we have archetypes. That's always been my problem. Is we don't know how people are raised, and we don't know if what they think they saw is what they really saw. But you need to balance that, because you want them to feel believed, or you want to believe them. I believe that something has happened, but I may not believe that what you said happened is what really happened. So how do you challenge that? How do you hero that? How do you deal with situations like that?
I think one of the things too that I'm dealing with right now is we use the terminology non-human intelligences, but how does that cover seeing your long dead relative? Okay. No, because it was a human at one time. Okay, and so it's coming back in a form that you recognize, and so it is human to you. And so how do you categorize orbs as a non-human intelligence? Maybe it is a non-human, but so I think there needs to be some kind of terminology that will cover all the bases, whether it's poltergeist activity, whether it's your long lost dead relative that you're seeing, spiritual awakening, kundalini type of experiences, all of that because as we've started to go out to some of the therapists, when I've talked about non-human intelligence, the first thing one of them said to me says, well, what about the long dead relative that comes back? Is that categorized non-human?
Well, see, that's interpretation, right? So to go to the orb as an example, that to me is a sensory display. That's the group. And then the type would be aerial activity because it's in the air. And then the subtype would be light, and because it has characteristics of energy and it's illuminating. So we call that light. Now you could call that same thing UAP, UFO, orb, spirit. You can call it whatever you want. Doesn't matter what you believe and how you raise, but all those people will have to agree or should agree that it's a light in the sky and one of your senses was able to detect it.
Right.
With poltergeist, that is objects moving. 9 times out of 10, you don't see any other paranormal activity with it. So with me and my understanding of poltergeist activity, I have a stronger sense of believing that it's human initiated. So we are creating the movement and we believe it to be paranormal based on how we were raised and what we were taught, less than it being something in another dimension. But that I don't want to steal the show on that, but that's kind of like how, but there is a category for that because it's a sensory, it's still paranormal activity. A sensory was displayed because you saw something. So your eyes in this part saw something, but an object moved. Or did you smell something? Or did you hear something? All those paranormal activities can be categorized with senses. And then what we do with the data is we study the experiencer. So what has all these experiences in common is the people. And what we're learning through our data is that they share blood types, they share eye color, they share, belief systems. Like there's a lot that they have in common. And from there, we have a better understanding of why the experiencers are the way that they are. And what that does is helps me in the science end have a higher chance of making contact when I know the right type of people that are able to manipulate what we call the ultra spectrum, which is the ether. So my question to put back to you in your organization, do you have anything like that for your people? And if not, perhaps, and we're live on the spot, but perhaps this might be something we could talk about later on that we could use to assist at helping your people as well.
Yeah, and again, what's very interesting about the support group is that it is people that are having wide experiences in all those areas for many years, and so they posit various thoughts that they personally have with regard to all of this, and it resonates with these people that are having similar circumstances, and so it is proved to be probably the most important thing, because most therapists don't have the level of experience dealing with these experiencers that is really necessary to fully understand it. As long as they can reduce the stress and be an empathetic listener, that seems to be the most important thing for therapists at this point. But having all the answers, nobody has all the answers.
About what I know, and we're still trying to figure that out, but what about patterns? So do you see a pattern that could lead you to a hypothesis as to what is happening?
Well, I would say that there's many theories that are out there as far as what something could be, as far as like the hybrid situation. Is that something that the aliens are doing because they're going to eventually take over the planet? And that I posit some of that in the book, the existential proposition of alien contact. I mean, this could be something that is in process right now because there's supposedly, millions of hybrids out there that look like you and I. You can't tell them apart. This is the book on Amazon, and so
And it's interesting that you can't tell them apart. So from an evidence perspective, like if they look human, they are human until proven otherwise, innocent until proven guilty.
Well,
So
yeah, and also Gary Nolan from Stanford University said, well, it's very difficult to comment about the hybrid process because we don't have alien DNA to compare. But then again, Helen Luttrell wrote a book called Rachel's Eyes that her daughter went to school, Humboldt College in Northern California, with a hybrid that was being delivered food from the military. And
that's
she looked
interesting.
very different. Yeah, it's a hell of a book. As a matter of fact, Helen Luttrell was in our support group in San Jose and was regressed by June Steiner, who was the president, the past president of OPUS, who's a hypnotherapist and counselor. So, or are this hybridization process something that the aliens need to do to help themselves in a way, that they're creating a combination so that they can exist in the future. Yeah.
So, how would you characterize a hybrid? So, like you use that word, I use that word, an experiencer might call that word, use that word to explain this. But to you, what criteria needs to be present before you label it a hybrid?
Yeah, it is very difficult to characterize supposedly what a hybrid is. I was at the MUFON symposium this past July in Las Vegas, and a woman came up to me and started to tell me about her hybrid children. And Geraldine Orozco, who is one of our board members, who is pretty well known as being a hybrid mother. She has 24 children, supposedly. And so, I mean, you hear these stories, and, the only person that I knew personally that felt that she was a hybrid was Cindy Crawford. And the thing with her was that her organs were in different places inside her body. And that was well known. She had X-rays and all this type of information about that. Now, does that mean she's a hybrid, or is it just because she had some kind of mutation when she was born that created that? I don't have any definitive proof that people are hybrids. But people feel. And even David Jacobs now has said in his latest book that they're hybrids, that they look so much like you and me that you don't even want to call them hybrids. They're hybrids, the human part.
The human part,
yeah.
So the challenging parts, especially with that, is we have the term coined, and then we have the term used. And then we have years of people relating to it, and then having something happen to them, either physically or psychologically, and in many different ways of interpreting, whether it's ET or my labs or any other method of intrusion, interpreting it, talking to others who are trying to interpret it, and then getting help from other people trying to understand it. All the more reason to regulate it, or at least on this side. Now, with what's going on the UFO side in America, and the disclosure and all that, with the your department there. Sorry, I don't know the long acronym that they threw out there. Not ATIP, the new whatever that turned out to be, the ASOG or whatever that is.
Yeah, right.
But do you think that, like, what's your opinion on that? And just to segue into that, and then what I want to kind of lead into is whether or not that's going to be a stepping stone to getting better data to also mention the existence of extraterrestrial, or do you just think it's something just UFOs?
Well, I'm going to back up a little bit and say that in the case of the hybrid, I'm going to put a little bit more into that. That most of these people that claim that they have hybrid children have been on craft. Supposedly, they've seen they've been presented to their supposed children that look very much different than the aliens themselves, and certainly different from us. And so, and they're presented in that way, that these are your children. And of course, in the case of females, eggs have been taken, they've been fertilized, and they have missing fetuses, and things of that nature. So there's a lot of evidence, quote unquote, circumstantial evidence, if you will, that points to the fact that, yes, there's a hybridization process going on. So they exist. Okay, and I'll leave it at that.
Now, does that mean it's now you're determining who's in control of that? Could it be human? Could human beings be responsible for the program, and then them misinterpreting this process as being extraterrestrial? Because some witness ETs in the room, some witness humans in the room.
Yeah, and that's been the case. I mean, besides the grays, which are quite common, you'll have mantid type creatures, which the latest information on that they're 99.9% of the time female, and very loving and very much in control. And you'll have the Nordic type people, and then you have military people that also show up in a lot of this. So, and of course, if you believe what Haim Eshed, the Israeli general that came out with his book, talking about the fact, oh yeah, the aliens are here. They have bases on the moon and Mars, and we've been working with them. And but they don't want to make themselves known because the human race is not ready. So,
and the problem with that is that comes from a high official that goes all over the place. People say it, they questioned his age and all this other stuff and blamed it and had all this circumstantial reasonings for that to not be true. But at the same time, there's a lot of evidence for it to be true, all circumstantial on both sides, but yet no fact in the middle. So,
well, it's like, Colonel Corso, the day after Roswell, and I had the honor to meet him in Roswell on the 50th anniversary. And I walked up to him and I asked him, I said, you have a stellar background, and you were in the Eisenhower administration, wonderful credentials, and now you've come out with this book. Are you worried about what's going to happen to your reputation and things like that? He says, hell no. He says, our children, our grandchildren need to know that this is happening.
Yeah, it's logical. I mean, I'm in a different generation as a ufologist, like self, whatever you want to call it, like especially in Canada. I mean, Stan Freeman has passed. Paul Hellyer has passed, and I'm trying to catch up and understand, what they've done, their opinions, and then what's happening in the real world, and then listening to all this other stuff. And who knows, by the time I get up to 80 years and that information that might be divulged to me. And then sure, I write a book and tell everybody the truth, but the book is interesting to us in this small circle. This is a very big family in this community, but it's very small in comparison to those on the outside. And what and the thing is that there's a lot of us inside here that provide a lot of service, a lot of skills, a lot of resources, a lot of a lot of help towards the cause. Yet because the government isn't acknowledging it or doing anything like that, and that still happens with a lot of other causes, in society. So, is this any different than anything else that human beings have taken upon themselves to take care of our people for, as far as a movement goes? And do you think, and if it is different, do you think the government's going to cash in and finally tell us, because they're, at that age too?
It's interesting. Again, at the last MUFON symposium in Las Vegas, Nick Pope was the kickoff speaker, if you will, and we were talking about the UAP report that the government came out with, and he said something to the group that, I hope it's either the Russians or the Chinese that have this technology, because we could at least pick up a phone and talk to them. And I came up to him afterwards and I said, you know what, you're really missing the boat, Nick. I said, you know, these experiencers are having telepathic communication with the aliens on an ongoing basis. And so I think, you know, that part of it, you're just missing the boat on that. We can talk to them already. It's happening, folks. So, you know, and I had the opportunity about 2 years ago, before COVID shut everything down, to have lunch with Lou Elizondo. And we had a very nice lunch with him. He was actually there interviewing Terry Lovelace for the show Unidentified, but that never came to fruition for whatever reason. And but we had lunch and we started to talk about various things. And he mentioned the fact that they felt that they understood how these things operate, which to me was a tremendous revelation. And matter of fact, I just literally today, I wrote to him to ask him to appear on, I do a series called the OPUS interview series, that's on our website and also on YouTube. And because I want to talk to him not only about, you know, the nuts and bolts aspects of it, but what's the next step? What's the next step? And yeah, here's some of those interviews. You know, I think the government is already doing this. I mean, I think Kit Green and Gary Nolan have already been talking to experiencers. They understand the fact that there's a difference in their physical brain set up in the caudate putamen area, where there's more connections and they're more psychic. They're more telepathic. And it's generational. It's they follow families. So I think the government's already talking to them about what's going on, but they haven't come out with it. And I think the first step is that they need to broach the topic. And they said, well, we don't have evidence that it's the aliens, but we don't have evidence that it's not the aliens. And that's the real thing. And I think that's what it is. I think with the aliens, you know, if you want to call it the aliens, that's another term that, you know, can be quite.
We do have a lot of evidence to prove that the government experiments that way. You know, like in terms of testing the mind and mind control and things like that too, remote viewing technology. So there's a lot of known reasons for it. And I've always, especially with the experiencer phenomenon, with the psychic abilities and making contact, like that's the thing. As far as evidence goes, it's hard to prove that on a case by case. It's hard to bring that into physical evidence. You know, what we do is we're building cases and combining them and doing a compare and contrast. So those types of cases do eventually matter when they're compounded,
right?
But that'll take some time. So if the extraterrestrials or whoever, if that's who is making contact with us, the evidence would be that we can be communicated with by some sort of method without our control and against our will. So another way that I look at this phenomenon, which is why I'm always leaning towards some sort of human intervention, not saying that aliens doesn't exist or paranormal doesn't exist. I just to look for a who's behind it, who the controller is in a sense. There's a lot more human element behind it, because it's invasion of privacy. It's intrusion, it's abduction. There's a lot of criminal laws that are broken. And if there was a human being responsible behind it, then it would make sense not to confess to that, because then there would be charges that would have to come forward with that. Now, using the E.T. as an excuse, as a cover, is also something that is very quite possible, yet cannot be proven, just as well as anything else. So how do we solve this riddle when we know that we can do it? We have the effort, we're trying, we're not getting the support from the government in the way that we need it, or we're not getting the answers to a point that we believe it, because that's a problem on its own. Not everybody can trust the government with everything. What's the future? Like, where do we go from here?
Yeah, I think that first of all, I think that an organization like MUFON, which has been a nuts and bolts type of organization, needs to move on to the more of what the E.R.T is doing and really investigate that aspect of it, because I think the nuts and bolts aspect will be eventually divulged by the government. I think it's going to come out. And how do we understand what the nature of what we're dealing with? Is it extraterrestrial? Is it interdimensional? Is it time travelers? Is it the military? Or is it all the above, which I think it is? I think it can be, relegated to all the above that we're dealing with. I think that there are levels, the military industrial complex, if you will, that Eisenhower talked about, that you need to be wary of, and that's what the government has done. They've put all their secret programs into the industry, the civilian industry, which we can't go after them in FOIA, with FOIA requests. And so is that something we're ever going to be able to understand? It's a real conundrum. The people in power do not want to give up that power, and if they can just keep the lid on all of this, that's what's going to occur until such time that critical mass is reached by all these people that are being abducted, experiencers, and that we wake up one morning and, oh yes, they're here. They've been here. They've been, doing things, and it's not going to be one day a giant disclosure. It's going to be a confirmation that, oh yeah, it's been happening, folks. They're here.
Mm-hmm. No, it's interesting times for sure. So we're going to pause right here, but we'll continue after a message from our sponsors. If you're listening to this audio only version, and you have to head over to youtube.com/the Experiencer Support Association so you can see the video that goes with the audio. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiencer Support Association, and we will be right back.
It's your business. It's your property. Your assets are worth protecting. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services specializes in patrolling and inspecting residential or commercial property against fire, theft, vandalism, terrorism, and illegal activity. People and buildings are monitored to prevent crime. Keep your property, your people, and your assets safe from threat. Our elite staff are dual licensed private investigators and security guards. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services. Go to blacklightiss.com.
The same thing that draws aliens to our planet is the same thing that draws us to others. Exploration, curiosity, sustainability of life. That's why we go. It would make sense as to why they're visiting here.
Travis! Quit playing around, man. Get back here. Travis!
The last thing I remember was this numbing shock. Stunning sort of a feeling. Very powerful.
Get away from me!
I was just out of my mind with fear, just screaming the whole time.
It's been theorized that aliens prefer remote areas because they don't want to attract attention. Whatever it is that they're doing, they would want to do that in a less populated area. There are multiple accounts of the same thing from people from all over the world. People that do not know each other, do not live in the same cultures, and they're all looking up, they're all seeing things in the sky. So it would be naive of us to think that
Ryan is one of Canada's leading new UFO investigators. He conducts and oversees UFO investigations on a constant basis and was really taken by his research. He's compiled a tremendous amount of data regarding UFOs in Canada. And just as interesting, he really goes over how UFO investigations are done. And What are some of the mistakes that people make when they submit evidence? Note for starters, don't edit your videos or photos before you send them. If you want to hear more follow-up conversation between Ryan and myself, you can go to richardolanmembers.com, where we have a candid conversation on ufology, the paranormal, and more. And remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other.
Welcome to the Observation Deck, a state-of-the-art, one-of-a-kind virtual platform that takes video conferencing to the next level by using avatars to navigate a campus, just like you would in real life. First, you install the application and design your very own unique avatar. Then you're free to explore the various areas of the campus at any time from anywhere. There's so many areas and activities to choose from on the platform. There's a 1,000-seat auditorium, a large expo hall, a movie theater, a nightclub, an art gallery, and even a beach. Come attend a conference or take a class or hear a lecture. Meet new friends and interact directly with presenters. It's all right here on the incredible Observation Deck campus. Where in the world will you go?
Have you ever wondered, or maybe just thought to yourself, if there were others just like you? You know, people with extraordinary abilities, psychogenic advancement, and perhaps unique intuitions. Maybe you just wondered if there were other people who experienced unimaginable, unexplained, or even unusual and paranormal events. Are there people who have more questions, more fears than answers? Well, you're not alone. You've never been alone. We believe you. Sign up for EA today by going to tesacan.org/EA. That's TESACAN.org/EA. Welcome back. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. Did you know we have a private community chat for our members on our YouTube channel? If you become a member, you will get bonus content like exclusive videos, including bloopers, behind the scenes, and members-only Q&A. Also, if you've ever experienced an unexplained event involving the paranormal, UFOs, extraterrestrials, dogman, or any other paracryptid, head over to tesacan.org/reporting system. Let the others who have already reported be that example that proves that we are making a difference. And if it wasn't for these reports, we would not be able to do what we do. And we thank you. I'll let you know that our website is still being redeveloped. The new site should be, I think, end of March, start of April. So the reporting would be a lot easier for everybody moving forward. So let's get back into it. How you doing? You good? You good for another hour? You hanging in there?
Absolutely. Let's rock and roll.
Let's rock and roll. All right. So I want to stay on the... Like, this is good. This is real well-rounded, and I feel like we can go in a bunch of rounded rabbit holes here. But we don't talk too much about contact or abductions, I should say, or visitations is what we call them, to be a little bit more neutral.
Neutral.
Yeah, because abduction implies, this is another thing that we try to do by removing those archetypes and labels, is especially when we compare the Hynek classification scale, Hynek Vallée, when it's close encounter, we call it close experience, because we don't want to just assume right off the bat that it's a negative experience, because some people do report positive stuff as well. So for visitations, are there any for you? Are there any markers, any psychological or physical things that you might be able to see or know or pick out to maybe suggest that has happened to an experiencer that may not know?
Yeah, I think that one of the probably top things that people talk about is lost or missed, or missing or compressed time that has occurred to them, even while driving in their car. Audible tones before contact occurs. Sudden abnormal silence before a feeling of presence. This has been talked about a lot with cases where, especially when people are outside in the woods or camping or something like that, and the crickets are going crazy, and all of a sudden, bam, nothing, silence. And so people talk about nosebleeds that occur on a frequent basis associated with an abduction. Unusual marks on the body, puncture marks, triangular marks, dots in a triangular pattern, various types of marks on the body, and scars that like surgical type scars that person doesn't understand where it came from, but then they heal abnormally fast. That's another one. Paralysis, reoccurring headaches, eye and vision issues have been noted. And then the ability to move through solid objects, walls, windows. I had a case that took place near in Dayton, Ohio, near Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where a young boy was transported with his blanket through a window, and the blanket got stuck in the window. And the authorities, the military, came and confiscated the whole window. So there's been, oftentimes people talk about it. One of the stories from one of the experiencers in our support group by the name of Adam tells a story that the aliens talk about how they do that process where they basically disassemble you atom by atom and take you through, solid objects and then reassemble you. So that's pretty amazing. It's like the old transporter,
I was thinking of The Fly, the movie The Fly. Remember?
Yeah.
The risk analysis there. You don't want to get merged with some of those molecules.
Right. Being taken up in a beam of light is another one that is talked about. Lying on an examination table and being probed. You hear about that. I mentioned missing fetuses, but poltergeist activity in orbs. One of the things that the phase 1 of the Omega-4 study that we're in the process of doing, people have talked about, the therapists have talked about the fact that the grays are the number one thing that people observe, but then they see orbs as the next thing. Interdimensional type entities, and then poltergeist activity are the 4 major things that seem to be very common. Certainly telepathic abilities, psychic abilities. One of the things interesting that they talk about metallic taste in the mouth that occurs. And one of the, also another thing in the book, I talk about the physics behind some of these physical manifestations that can be related to microwave energy, X-rays, gamma rays, various types of electromagnetic frequencies that occur. And whether that's alien generated or, us or someone, you've heard about these cases where in the consulates around the world, people are coming down with, real issues. And they feel perhaps that it's microwave energy that something is generating to cause these people to have physical issues.
And we need to understand the why, though. See, I like the. How do the crime element comes in with me? What's the reason behind it? Why? How have they gotten away with it? How is it possible? it's because I wear two hats, like in the PI evidence court, lawyers, they need me to answer questions. So whatever the question is I have to provide and build a case to get to answer the question, or provide evidence to support the possibility of the scenario. So in that world, it is difficult to get tangible evidence to convince in the court of law that, other than a large sample coming forward and saying the same thing. But yet, if it's in our mind, and then that's collectively, not saying it doesn't happen, not saying it is happening. It's either the government is doing it on purpose and we need to know why, or something extraterrestrial is doing it and we don't know why. And the other why we need to know if it's extraterrestrial is why the government isn't doing anything to counter it. And if they aren't doing anything to counter it, it seems plausible that they are working together. So even if you look at it from a mythology, a criminology aspect, to try to understand, put yourself in everybody's shoes, there has to be some sort of government involvement in all scenarios. So even if the extraterrestrials exists, it's being allowed, or maybe it can't be controlled. Now, what is your opinion if you were in charge of you were the government, right? The president of the United States, and you had this information and you couldn't do anything about it?
Yeah, it's a real problem. If you believe the stories about Eisenhower meeting with the aliens out at Holloman, I guess it was, Air Force Base, and they made an agreement that the aliens could abduct people, and we would get certain technology from them.
Well, they didn't get my vote for that. That's for sure.
No, of course not. Of course not. So that's one scenario. Or the other scenario is that we have no control, and they're doing whatever the hell they want to do, and based on the technology,
which would make sense why they're deflecting and why they're avoiding and not telling us. Because what's better, to say that it exists because that ruins everything, or to say we don't know anything about it and we can't have control, because there's that fear element that will come as a result, because there's a lot that's going to go into that. Yes, if a yes to UFOs means yes to everything we just talked about. You cannot say yes to one of these things.
Yeah, people in power don't want to lose power, and if the minute they open up and say, well, they're here, they're doing whatever the hell they want, we can't control it. Well, that's a real problem. That's a real problem. So I guess they would take care of Putin, though. I wish, and knock him out.
That's real time. That's real. Yeah, real stuff happening right now.
Oh my God! I mean, it's tragic. It's tragic that this is going on. I mean, he's done this 3 other times, and we have done nothing to, have any consequences for him. So he's just going to keep doing what he's doing, until, one day somebody's going to smack him in the face and stop him. But I don't know who that's going to be.
It is a very serious situation, and I don't want to talk ill on either side of the scenario of all the stuff going on, but I did read alternative theories and then and suggestions. And what is your thoughts on if this continues in the air? Do you think we might actually see some UFO tech being used?
Well, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think they'd want to show their hand if somebody has that technology. Not at this point. I don't think it's necessary at this point. But you never know. You never know.
It would be the best time. Everything's the stage is set. If you look at everything else that has happened and the timing. How are you with astrology and numerology and synchronicities and things like that? Are you?
Synchronicity, yes, I'm totally down with that. Astrology,
Mhm.
I'm not that aware of it. I haven't really looked into it that much.
Well, we're
But
2 days away from the the 2222 Tuesday event, and Pluto is
mhm,
on its return. Like, this is like a reset time. And then, like, so it's just for me, like, there's a lot of uh, I wouldn't say predicted the war. Like, everybody else knows that this was all coming. It's been in the news for a while, but just like looking at everything else in many other angles as a risk analysis. um you know, if I was a betting man, I was off by 2 days. So, like, and it feels weird, to kind of see how everything's progressing. And when I have this saying called "heed the world," which means watch the world, which means pay attention to everything that's going on,
mhm.
and how much of this is distracting. What is it distracting from us? We have a pandemic that's going on as well, that could easily be compared to that analogy that I used with the scenarios with aliens. Maybe they can't control it, and they had to do all these things and measures in place instead of telling us that they couldn't control it. So there's a lot going on. So with
Oh yeah,
everything else going on, is it possible that the government is just like, UFOs are nothing because it's small in comparison to everything else that's going on? And if that's true, then that's machines and government. We can forget about that. But where are these ETs and extraterrestrials coming from? Because that's not being talked about. That's being missed. You get what I'm saying?
yeah. I think that there's a conscious dissonance going on in
Mhm.
this world that most people, you
We
know,
are heavily being distracted right now, heavily, by so
yeah.
many things.
Oh,
Mhm.
sure, sure. And people get up in the morning, have breakfast, go to work, come home in the evening, have dinner, watch a little TV, go to bed. Next day they do the same damn thing. Well, you and I are able to do some other more creative things, which is great. But at the same time, the world has a different scenario, a different agenda, and you know these things have been bubbling, boiling for a long time, specifically with Russia. I mean that whole situation with the Ukraine goes back, decades, and so this is like the culmination of a lot of crap that was going on over there. But
Where I was kind of leading into is the support element. We need a lot of support on all angles. And where I kind of wanted to
sure.
tie back into is I appreciate, even though I wasn't aware of the organization during my time and career with MUFON, and I have many of theories as to why that may or may not have happened. I'm happy to know that something else existed, because I didn't think anything like that had at the level that your organization is running. I don't know when Linda Moulton Howe had joined. I had spent many conversations with her as well in the past, and she never mentioned Opus. So, there's just a lot of, we're so together, but yet we're so far apart. So
Mhm.
that there's no way that one group could be able to successfully take care of their own or everybody in the entire world. So just like there's a
Yeah.
United Nations for that's
Mhm.
working together right now with this. That's what Tessa is. Tessa's trying to become that United Nations within ufology and experiencer, so
So,
that
so,
we can
so
have.
what have you done to reach out to other organizations like
Well,
ART?
the offer essentially it comes with data. So what we want is to be able to regulate and repackage and create a universal language to explain to all audiences, including paranormal people and UFO people, how to communicate with each other, so we can share data
Mhm.
and quantify it.
Right.
From there, have it at that level so we can bring it up to a scientific level for review. Because there's a lot of scientists out there that are pulling their hairs out because they can't do anything because they don't have the right numbers. So with us, the goal is to make sure that we have the best evidence possible, in all these cases, so that way the experts can do what they need to do and silo it. So we collect everything, pool it, and then splinter it to the aces in their places. So we're looking for organizations that are that have that reach and have that connection, because the experiencer is choosing you through your network. We don't need to tell your people to come to us instead of you. It's happy to know that they're aware of you, and they're aware of us, and by choice they're choosing to get help, and there's people helping them. And what we're trying to do by bringing the organizations together is to magnify the reach, so that way we can help more. But it has to be regulated in the sense that we're all hitting those elements. We're providing that support, that referral, but we're also doing the investigations to verify and validate and regulate to make sure we're referring them to the right people with the right credentials. It's not a schoolyard like it has been. We're insured, we're bondable. It's a private investigating firm doing investigations. So that's the main thing. There's a lot of credible people and researchers out there, but you get what you pay for. So so we're trying to at least provide a better starting point, so that everyone who's already doing the things that they're doing can do what they're doing better. And I truly believe that it starts with the experiencer, because the experiencer is brave enough to come forward and share their story. That's one thing, but they're not skilled enough to know how to collect the data. So I also work with the experiencers to teach them how to get evidence, so that way we can actually document it and do stuff with it, so we can actually get these answers. So if someone is constantly getting abducted, and to prove whether it's mentally or physically, you could wear a camera to bed. That's a very simple suggestion. And if that camera goes with you, and then you have video evidence, and then there we go, there's the answer. And some people do that, and nothing shows up on the tape. So does that mean they weren't abducted that night? No, sometimes that means it's in the mind, perhaps, and then it's a dream. So then once we categorize it and understand how it's happening, the methods that's used to obtain it, because we're also looking into meditation, sleep, contact, CE5, like however they're trying to connect, then refer them to the best of the best in those places to go further. But the thing is, when you mentioned regression earlier, I like to use regression too as a tool, but I would never send them for regression if I had the choice until I had all the data. So until I interviewed them, collected everything, had everything I need, all the evidence available, because once I send them for regression, their chance of believing it to be true will increase, and there's no way that I could talk them back. But at least I have the evidence to support that there's a reason for regression. And then if the answers line up with the case file, then that lends more credibility to the experiencer as well as the person providing the service, because there are people in here who are doing the service for money, and they manipulate people. So that's another thing that we help too, is to make sure that the people have the credentials, to make sure that the transaction is legal and proper, and we fight for the people. We report on people who make criminal, who do crime. That's we're privatized. I'm a privatized detective essentially. So I've created a police department essentially for UFOs. That's the best way to explain it. But
I think our organization basically has been a support mechanism. We don't investigate cases. That
but
when a person
we
asks
could,
us,
and then we could refer them to you after, because the trauma.
One of the things that they can tick off as far as, do they want to join the online support group? Do they want a referral to a therapist? Do they want their case investigated? And when they click that box, what I tell them is that, we're not set up to investigate these, but please contact MUFON. And I give them the contact information for MUFON. And then if it, in the case of most of these cases, then it would be referred to the A.R.T. Okay. But also now, what you're doing is certainly another aspect of it. So I would be happy to refer people, especially up in Canada. But I'm sure you're doing stuff on Zoom with people investigating cases as well.
Yeah, we're doing a whole bunch of things, and I would encourage. I always encourage people to report to as many people as you can, because we also have a variance on how we investigate, and you know what you're looking for. So if you are going to put us on that referral list, which I appreciate, I mean, I would I would want you to refer MUFON as well, because the experiencer should choose. Yeah, the experiencer would be able to look at. They know what they need. They know what they're looking for, and of course, they chose you, right? So the experience. It's good to have multiple resources for that. But what I'm also trying to do is have the network done, so that way, no matter where they went to, that we're able to repackage it. So if somebody reported to MUFON first, then they would let us know that, and then that gives me permission to talk to Dave McDonald, which I do talk to some on a regular basis, to inquire, get permission to contact the state director to share their Form 30 with me, because the experiencer has given me permission to get their investigation. And then we have all the evidence together, and then we build the case together. Because if MUFON helped for a little bit, and then we help for a little bit, and then we carry it on and pass, this experiencer starts to travel and get all this variances of supports. Because what matters to us is that the experiencer isn't keeping it inside, and the experiencer isn't afraid. The experiencer isn't alone. But at the same time, we protect them with by giving them an experiencer ID number and going to bat and keeping all this information out too, to keep their identity hidden. But it's when we notice the trauma, we need a resource as well, because I can't. It's like de-escalating a situation. You get into a bar fight or something like that. You got to de-escalate it before you figure out why the fight started. So a lot of the time, the experiencers will report in a state of panic and concern. And then at sometimes, I already have the data, but then I need to refer them right away. So it would be beneficial as well to refer them to organizations like yourself, so that way I already have the data. They went to you, and then you treated them, or you did your part, but we are able to communicate with each other, so that way I can learn as an investigator how that story from what you've taken in compares to what I already have. And then that will help me establish and remove what the fluff is, remove opinion, remove, all these propaganda and ideas and imaginations, and then figure out what the root is. And then we can actually determine what we're investigating, and then pass that on to the appropriate expert.
Sure.
So again, running it like a police force, when a crime scene happens, the police officer would need to first establish that there is blood or forensic evidence. They would not collect the sample. They just need to be smart enough to know that it's there, contain it, and then call in the scientist, the CSI, to grab the sample, do the work, wait for the results. The results come back, and then you close the case, and then you give them direction and referrals. So that's essentially what we would do in that aspect, is make sure that everything is available, is collected before it's destroyed. Because if they start with a regression hypnotherapist who believes them and doesn't do an investigative thing first, there's a high chance of their belief being so high that they won't accept the rational ideas or remove some fluff to get down to figuring out what it really is. And that's the challenge, because it's by choice and it's by belief, and that's why I hope that they find us first. But it's not always the case. You get what I'm saying? So the challenges we have had is that when they find the support, there's no longer a need in their mind to have it investigated, because they just believe. And if they just believe, that doesn't mean it's true. And if we investigate it, it also doesn't mean it's true. They have to happen together.
Yeah, I think that oftentimes when people contact us and say they want their case investigated, that's truly what they want to have happen.
It's good that you follow up with MUFON, but do you get confirmation that from the experiencer that MUFON actually reached out?
In some cases we do.
Okay.
In some cases we get negative responses.
So do we.
Yeah.
And we do a survey on that too, because that teaches us, what we need to do
Yeah.
to make them happy.
Yeah, there's some issues within MUFON. Some field investigators, some state directors even have had issues with the quote unquote the paranormal, and so don't look at it very kindly. But I always tell these people, if you do have a bad experience or people don't get back to you, please let me know, and then we'll follow up and try to do something.
And yeah, we're like that as well. And it's the thing is the experiencers, for you experiencers that are listening, and just like it's your case, it's your experience, it's your event. So you should be selective, you should be picky, and if there are options available, you should report to as many areas as possible that you trust, so you can get a big picture of what is happening with you. Because as we've just with these three ideas and organizations, we all measure the same thing but different ways. And so it's and what we're trying to do is understand all the ways it could be measured and put it all together into one sample, so that way we can understand what's really going on, which is why I keep getting that human element. But we also assist field investigators with MUFON. So a lot of issues that I had as the chief investigator for MUFON and the national and the directors and whatnot, is our field investigators had numbers. We didn't get names. We did all this work, and there was no names for ourselves. The only time that people heard about what my name was because of Richard Dolan. Richard Dolan saw my work and said, like Richard Dolan and Linda Moulton Howe pulled me into a corner at Alien Cosmic Expo and just said, "You're too good for MUFON. People need to know who your name is." And I ended up going onto a podcast with Richard Dolan, and then that's how that started. It's like, "Good luck, kid. You're on your own." And then 4 years later, here we are having that conversation. But there's still a lot of field investigators that don't get that credit. And the only way for them to get the credit is by talking to these field investigators and saying, well, you can refer the experiencers to other places because it's their experience. And by me getting an experiencer reporting and letting us know that they've also contacted a third party, so MUFON, here's my case number. If I'm able to get the case through MUFON, I'll be able to get the field investigator, and then I'll be able to work with the field investigator. And then when we publish it, we give credit to the investigator. The investigator gets named because they did the work. And the thing is, a lot of times when the experiencer finds us after they come through MUFON, they're mad about the organization, but they love the field investigator, and then the field investigator is not their fault because they do their work and they put it in the system, and then the system failed them. And so we're also trying to help field investigators who are already doing the work to do that work better too, because you've read the manual. I was in the middle of rewriting the manual because there were so many things wrong with it. However, it wasn't financially advisable for them to make changes to the MUFON manual. So I do spend a lot of time teaching field investigators privately, of course, how to get better evidence. And that's where it starts. If the experiencer learns how to collect evidence properly, they will also learn how the cell phone works and why it's a lens flare. If I walk them through it and explain to them to recreate the event instead of me showing up there, they'll see that little light and they'll understand that everything else that they reported was not anomalous. If by spending that extra little time with them on the first case guarantees me a second report in the future, but I will not get that type of report again because they just learned something. So that's another thing that we do is we teach the experiencers who already know to report. They already come in forward. They just don't know how to collect this stuff. And if I teach them to collect it better, and we have a system that regulates it better in a language that's understood universally, we'll have better evidence. What I don't have is loud enough people to take said evidence and make that go around. You get what I'm saying? And it's hard to trust that evidence with a lot of people because there's a lot of drama with associations. There's a lot of cliques and a lot of clubs.
There's a lot of ego. There's a lot of egos involved with all of this. Absolutely.
But if I could find a way to get that data circulating, then that would be that annex, that would be that funnel where everything will be regulated and systematic, and then everybody can work from it, from one sample, and come to the same conclusion and push that to your politicians and all these things that everybody wants to do.
Well, let me ask you a question. If you have like a standard list of questions that you would ask a person, and if so, would that be something that we could put on our site? For instance, if a person, or maybe not even on our site, but just have it as a reference material. If a person says, I'd like to have my case investigated, well, here, you need to fill out this form first, and then we're going to send it to you, and then from there it'll go first.
So right now our website's being redone. It's going to be a better, easier reporting system, but essentially it's right here. We can send a link to it. They answer the first question and lets them in, and so it's all there. So you can do a redirect. It's all on the website. I've created that out of conditional logic. So you know how MUFON asks a million questions for a million things? This only asks questions that are relevant to the answers that you provide. It's conditional logic. It also asks it in such a way that by the time you get to the end of it, the experiencer might have solved it for themselves, which means they don't have to hit submit because they already know the answer.
Okay.
That
would be great.
I could show you the website, but visually it's blown up so much in the last few years that I'm afraid that I might end up like MUFON being outdated. So I'm getting the website fixed in a way to project the next 50 years of collecting the data, because I don't want to end up in MUFON situation where they can't update the CMS without starting from scratch. And if they start from scratch, they lose all their years of data, and that's a problem for them. So I've caught on. So the last few years have been kind of like, hey, do you think people would be interested in this? Yes, people are interested in this. Okay, here's some science that's interested in this. Oh, we're actually on to something. All right, let's take it to the next level. So with that reporting system will be mobile friendly. We also actually might as well show you, and this is good for our listeners too. We will be taking, once the cases are done, we also do visual evidence database. So you know how MUFON has the UFO stalker? So this is similar idea, except only cases that are unidentified through the process. And it also includes government documents, document stuff, and it's going to be more interactive too. So I also get declassified documents from the Canadian government, and I find the location of where those events take place, and then I do
one of the things that one of the people in our support group, who happens to be Canadian, submitted a report to MUFON, and they put a marker on that tracker in his town, and he called them up and contacted them and said, it's such a small town, I'm afraid people are going to know who you guys are talking about, even though my name is not associated with it. And he tried to get him to change it, but for whatever reason, MUFON does not have the capability of changing anything on that. It's done by an outside organization, which
it's done automatic. I was working on the CMS too when I was doing the field training. I was trying to change. The funny thing is that the TESA that I have, this program, this code, the system of everything was what I gave to Jan when I was in there to say,
Mhm.
this is what you need. This is your problem. It's fixed. You don't have any time. You don't have any money. I made it. I spent it. Take the code. You can have it. Let's
Mhm.
help the people. And that didn't happen. So all this is essentially the way that fixes those problems. So that way those things can be avoided. Now with UFO Stalker, I did know that it was automatic. So the information would come in and it would do the ping automatic. And the problem with that is that these cases are not some of these cases have been identified and they can't even remove those.
Yeah.
And then it alludes that every single one of these cases is something of significance to look at. So for us to challenge that, there's a lot of series of questions that ask consent, like what do you want us to do with it? We don't ask for permission. We ask what you want. Some
Right.
people will say a variance of do whatever you want with it. Well, then we'll interpret that. Of course, even if they select, they're okay to have their name known, we still protect that. We're just measuring on the comfortability. How many people are actually comfortable with sharing their info versus how many are not, and we still protect it anyways. When we put the pins in, the experiencers are aware, but it's only on the cases at the end of the year that we can't figure out. So we do everything privately, but then we get together at the end of the year to try to weed everything out, and then we release them to the ones that we just can't figure out. And the hope is that other groups will be able to figure them out for us in future years, because we don't have help right now. But when we get
Yeah.
help, we'll start to learn more.
Right.
But if the experiencer says, contacts us and says take it down or move the pin, well, we can move the pin. It's real easy to do that. The purpose of it, though, is not just for the visual to see. It's also for me when I'm in the field. Once this pandemic is done, I'm going to these hotspots that I see in my work, and I'm building this website to be mobile friendly, so I can just pull out my phone wherever I am and look to see, okay, yeah, there's a case I investigated from here a few years ago, and it's just down the road, so I'm going to go there now. As I'm inputting the data from my own investigations, and then where that will spear into is, I hope, by setting that example, other countries will contribute. So even though I'm focusing on Canada, I do have some interest on people doing the same for America. I have some interest in UK to do the same with their declassified documents in UK to get this master map of declassified documents, master map of experiencer cases that have been vetted, so we can actually see everything and measure it everywhere. And that could come from MUFON, that could come from OPUS, that can come from anyone. It's just one resource that everybody can use. And I'm also putting all the resources that we use as field investigators online for free for other investigators to use. So we're basically, what I've created is an open concept to MUFON. So that way the field investigators that are doing it can still learn from me without me being part of the organization, because I was removed for identifying the problem of Jan Harzan. And and I'm directly responsible for that. So so I continue to help in that sense, so that everybody can learn from it and contribute. And once everybody's able to contribute in timeline and we have all this information together, we all can learn and we all can grow and adapt and evolve.
You just said something, and I have to back you up about Jan Harzan. What did you mean by that?
So, to be absolutely clear, as the field investigator, director of field investigator training, a lot of people confided in me and told me issues and things within the organization. Some of those concerns had to do with some of the activities in which Jan Harzan was eventually arrested for. So because information was reported to me, I had the obligation, being a private investigator, owning my private investigating firm, I had the duty of care in order to pass that information on to the authorities. So I don't know indirectly if the information that I had passed on was directly the result of what led to the investigation and the arrest. However, it was in the wheelhouse of the information that was provided to me confidentially. Because I had done that, and I've recently started to talk about it and things like that too, because it was very upsetting, because I was in a, it's upsetting. Jan was a mentor to me, and there's like a whole bunch of things, but I was just in this thing. So for me, it was like, okay, you know what? I don't know if it's true, but I can't ignore it. So I'm going to pass it off to the authorities. And if it's true, then they'll follow the lead and they'll carry on, and then all those other things. And unfortunately, the organization has taken a hit for that. And as much as I'm talking about the challenges that MUFON has, my whole passion has been able to improve this system in a way that could help the experiencers and also help the field investigators who are trying just as hard as you and I, but not getting the opportunity because there's something in the way. And there's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of laws. There's a lot of legalities. There's a lot of people, but the experiencer doesn't know. The experiencer reports to MUFON because of their marketing and doesn't know that all these things are happening, behind the scenes. To them, they're just waiting for an answer. They don't have an explanation as to why they're not getting an answer. They're just not getting an answer. So anyways, like, I mean, it's I have lots of friends that move on and things like that, but a lot of people have been upset with me and mad at me because, but I mean, how was I supposed to know if it was true? Right? Like, fuck, pardon me, but
it was a big surprise to me because I mean, I worked very well with him. And we had many good conversations and everything, and there was never any indication, along those lines. I still haven't heard what the final outcome was.
I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it at first, and that's why I was like, I carried a lot of stress and a lot of things on it, and because I did that, it created this huge internal push out, which is why I was removed without them saying anything, because they thought I was stirring shit up. And then I got that whole like, I told you I was right moment, but then in the reality, it's really sad. And I wasn't happy to learn that.
There was some indications that it was a setup, and that people were thinking that MUFON was starting to move in a really positive direction and gaining some real traction, and so they took out the leader.
I don't know. From my perspective, and I mean, this is the most I've ever talked about it too, is that reports were made. There was enough evidence for me to not ignore it. So I passed it off, and I trusted the system, and so that's all I can say. Whether my tip even was received or used, I have no way of knowing that. But there are people who know that I was involved, and they're blaming me, thinking that I did that on purpose and all these other things. And there's a lot. There's a lot of that around. But I'm kind of good that happy to have this. This is live. It's pre-recorded. Like, it's not like I'm comfortable sharing this. Honestly, but I just
it's like don't shoot the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger.
Well, I get that a lot in this business because a lot of people don't understand what an investigator is. We have a lot of researchers, we have a lot of scientists, we have a lot of journalists that do all parts of research and investigations, but they don't know how to interrogate and investigate and follow leads and I wouldn't say entrap, but get to question answered. And then there's that moral compass and that obligation that goes to, okay, this is a really bad thing. What do I do with it? Well, I'm not a police officer, so I can't arrest them. But if I hand it over to a police officer and the evidence is sound, then they'll move forward. So other things that I've done is when people have paid for a service, for regression, as an example, and they didn't get the service. So that's a crime. That's fraud. So like there's a lot of that going on in ufology and paranormal, and a lot of people are the experiencers are victim to manipulating people as well. And it's hard for them to get the care and the support that they need without worrying about this. So that's why I'm in this mix in a way to walk that neutral line so I can understand why things happen. But when that criminal I draw the line at the criminal element, but it's just, it's very dangerous, and it's very hard for me to make sound referrals when there's a lot of noise and theories around misconceptions, because people don't understand why people do the things that they do. And that's also sad. And I spend a lot of time mediating. So that's another thing that I can do by bringing people together, is I mediate and say, like, yeah, okay, you don't like MUFON. I still need MUFON because they're good for some things. You don't have to use MUFON, but I'm going to use MUFON. So you report to me and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So I just have to know how to use everybody so everybody can get along. And it's okay if nobody gets along. But then everybody hates me because I know things. And I am a licensed private investigator. I own and operate my own private investigating firm. I mean, I clear a room every time I show my credentials, right? Like it's a tough gig. So I'm just giving you a full disclosure. Like I know, like I know some of the crew that you're with may or may not have heard those things. So I'm giving you the rub and the being honest, giving you the real, and it's live. I'm giving this to my audience too, man. I've touched on it so many times, but I'm not in this. I'm not picking sides. I want the truth. And in order for me to get the truth, I need to trust people, and I need to know whether or not Lou Elizondo is a counterintelligence agent or not. It doesn't matter to me, but I just need to know which one he is so I can make a referral. And until I'm able to determine that, he's not someone I would refer to, because there's not enough evidence either side. I don't hate him, don't love him, but you know,
I think
just a
you
thing.
know, like I said, I had that lunch with him, and I think that he's a gentleman of honor. I think he's dedicated to what he's trying to do. I don't think there's another agenda that he has other than trying to bring out the truth in this phenomenon. So,
and it's a part of it.
I hope I get to interview him, because I just sent them a request to do an interview. So if I get it, I'll let you know.
Yeah, no worries. I won't be on. He won't sit with me, because he knows I'm looking into things, and I'm just trying to understand the truth. I'm not looking. I'm trying to understand, because even in the private investigating world, if I have a parent who is trying to get custody of a child, the first thing I need to, obviously my client who's paying me to get custody for the client, what they don't realize is that I have to first determine whether or not they can be fit to have the child, because they might just be paying me to get support from the proper parent because they lost and they're mad and they're angered. And then I come into this challenge where it's like, okay, you're not fit to have this child, but yet you've paid me. So do I want to get paid today or not? And then there's a lot of situations, even with cheating husbands and wives. I've been in situations where it's like, yep, I found proof that your husband has been cheating on you, or your wife has been cheating on you. What would you like me? What are you going to do when I give you this evidence? Well, I'm going to head over there and I'm going to shoot him. Well, I'm not going to give you that. So you don't have to pay me. I'm not going to be responsible for murder. So like in this UFO community, there's a lot of that. There's no regulations. There's no referee. And you have people defending Lou Elizondo. You have people attacking Lou Elizondo, and you got Lou just saying whatever. I know my truth. I know who cares. But yet there are people fighting against each other. Sure. Because their belief is their belief, and the other belief is their belief. But they're like doxing people. They're threatening each other. It's ugly. But yet this guy, hasn't done anything different. He just did something, and it was interpreted a certain way, and the world just kind of ate it up. And unfortunately, but then that's where it's tough with these experiencers, because they're watching this? What do they believe? Because they were just abducted last night, and they're looking for answers. And this is what I have to go to. No wonder, and that's what leads to the depression and the suicide and all these other ugly things that we kind of rabbit holed into, which is also something that Tessa is trying to do is create awareness to prevent that, and which is why we want people to report. So we want them to stay to keep it out, and if they can't make it public, that's okay. That's why I'm here. I'll make it public for you. All right. With whatever it is you tell me that you're comfortable with sharing. You don't need to come forward. You just need to know that I have it, and I will compare that with everyone else, and I will punt that forward on behalf of the experiencers. And they know, and they're listening, right? But as soon as they come forward and say, I believe in this, they're subjected to those sides. Those who don't believe it will attack them viciously and insult them. And there's so much crime, and there's so much depression, and there's so much anxiety. So that's what I'm trying to fix. I'm not going to get the answers. I'm just trying to stop the fight. You get what I'm saying?
Mhm.
There's so much of that. So I don't know how we got there, but we're there. Anyways, let's we're at the 2-hour mark. Let's throw let's skip my segment at the end here, and let's get into let's talk about implants. Let's get back into
Sure.
that. So the how much time you got?
I got time.
Yeah, so let's just get out of this rabbit hole and come back into something more positive. What are implants? Where do they come from? What are the signs that they have them? Let's get
Roger Lear, Dr. Roger Lear did some beautiful work. Took 17 patients that he removed these objects. And what was noted was there's no inflammatory rejection reaction by the body of these foreign objects. No visible portal of entry has been noted in many cases. Collections of specialized nerve endings surrounding the object, and in a lot of cases, these damn things moved when they tried to remove them. There's an outer coating of a ceramic biological material that's around it, a metallic phase where inorganic metal becomes biological tissue. The emission of radio frequencies has been noted, which are like deep space frequencies in the FM band that they noted. Electromagnetic fields in excess of 10 milligauss. Composition of meteoric iron, 66. Rare earth elements such as U-236, a single isotope of uranium existing by itself, and then iridium has also been noted. Non-terrestrial isotopic ratios indicating the involvement elements did not come from Earth. The existence of carbon nanotubes and gold spheres. I mean, all this stuff is like, it shouldn't be in the body, folks. And then who's putting them there? Most indications are that they're being implanted by extraterrestrials, aliens, interdimensionals, maybe our military. These are all possibilities that exist. And what's the purpose of these things? Is it tracking devices? Is it monitoring devices? There was somebody posited the fact that it's something to monitor pollution levels in the body, which I thought was kind of far out there, but who knows? And then controlling devices of some sort. So they're there. People, not because these things are bothering them, but have an X-ray for something else, and it's noted. And then they wonder what it is, and then some people have them removed, and the surgeon says, I have no clue as to how that got there or what it is. And so it's a real
and then the surgeon throws it in the garbage
in a lot of cases,
and we do not have any physical evidence to measure.
Right. Exactly.
So if you are an experiencer that goes through that, hang on to it.
Yeah.
Put it inside a suspendable, I don't know, something, maybe a paper bag.
Alcohol.
Don't let it touch the edges, alcohol or something, so we can, and then get that, make a report, and then we'll tell you how to get that analyzed from there.
Right. Exactly.
And that's the thing. Like, I mean, there's no consent. There's no waiver. You got an invasive object inside your body, some sort of procedure that was done without your consent. human, alien, ghost, doesn't matter. You still didn't consent to that, and that's a crime. See, I can like everything. I don't know, try not to be dark here, but that's how I view it. It's all. These are rights that
Mm-hmm.
are being violated,
Sure.
and I don't want. I don't care if it's an alien or a ghost, whatever you believe. I just don't
Mm-hmm.
want. I don't want you afraid to sleep at night because something is able to somehow come through your locked doors and locked windows and then take you through a wall. You know,
Well, interesting thing.
that shouldn't happen.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing that it like 70 to 80% of these people that are having experiences want them to continue. It's only a small, a minority that want it to stop because the experiences have been rather negative. And that gets to the point of whether you're dealing with, quote unquote, the good guys or the bad guys. And the question is, it's just like here on the earth, we have good people and we have bad people. And
it's perception too. Yeah.
And the same thing is going on up there or wherever, interdimensionally, if you will. It's that you have various groups supposedly that are, doing things here on our planet to us and to animals and to crops and insects even. There's a case that Linda Hodges did the other day where these aliens came down in Australia in Westhall and supposedly released some insects that were modified based on this remote viewer looking at the situation and seeing what was actually going on. I mean, you talk about going down a rabbit hole. I mean, this stuff,
and that's why it's got to be all connected, because like Linda, she has evidence of things, and if we were to contribute that, like if she were to contribute the evidence in a sense on the virtual database where we could plot it on the map as to where the evidence was retrieved, and like there's a lot of things that all of us could do to actually visibly see the proximity, because like that's another thing too, is we're all talking about it. This is one way. This is what everybody does. We do podcasts. We have a radio show. People listen. Maybe by the end of the day, this time tomorrow, we'll have 50 people have seen it, and we hope that those people will report and come back next week. This is just the way that this industry works. But it's still evidence. This is circumstantial evidence, hearsay evidence, but it's also documented evidence because we're talking about it. Now, when you provide this evidence, it can be used and measured differently. So if I take a UFO report, for an example, even if it's from MUFON and all the evidence is there and it's considered unidentified by whatever criteria it is, that is something we can say. And it sounds good. We can write something about it, but that piece of evidence can be used to get more evidence. So if I put that on a map, you now have it on proximity because you can see where it happened. When you see where it happened and where all the other ones happened, that's when you can start to see things. And we know that. But then there's also time. So we also put that on a timeline so you can actually see when it happened, because some people also report from events that happened in the 60s and to now or to a few years ago. And then you can start to see the pattern. And we also measure the patterns of the experiencer, because since we take everything, the experiencer might report an abduction at the beginning, but as we get to it, we might realize that there's some paranormal stuff and ask them to make other reports of these things separately. And then if we investigate them all individually, and say there's 10 and we ruled out 7 and there's 3 left and we timeline them, what I'm seeing as far as a pattern is it starts with some sort of visitation at an early age, and then there's some sort of craft involvement or vice versa later on, and then paranormal activity, and then eventually some kind of consciousness psychogenic phenomenon. Now these get reported at different times throughout the working with the experiencer. And they only remember the abduction event because that was the scariest.
Yeah.
That's the index event. But when you timeline it, you start to see the pattern that perhaps something happened at that contact event at a young age. And the consciousness that you stuff that you're seeing right now, this telepathy or the fortune telling or prophesizing and stuff like that, might have actually been evolution of all of the 40 to 50 years that have just passed from this whatever happened at this index event when you received this alleged implant. So there's a lot of data that isn't measured when these investigators are just looking for the story, or they're looking for the picture, and they're looking for the woo. And that's the thing with MUFON is like, yeah, we got the picture, we can write the book, we can do the movie, we can do all that other stuff, and make lots of money off of it. But there's so much more data. And then take Greenwald for an example, with him declassifying documents all the time for United States, like that's a tremendous amount of work. However, from an evidence point of view, it's a waste of time because it's not categorized properly. It's the documents are all there, but I can't find the who, the what, the where, and the when.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing with my documents, and hoping that someone else would cherry pick from there and do the who, the what, the where, and the when. We don't want everything. We want the best of the best. So that way we can actually narrow in and look. This is an area of focus. These are the types of events that are happening. These are the people. This is when it happens. And then we can predict how to create and make contact. Because if we have better data to make contact, then we can get contact. As an example, why I'm measuring the experiencers is because if 10 people are able to see the same thing, and I know that they don't know each other, but I have a variance, and I, through the measurements, see that they choose to meditate at a certain frequency. They don't know that. I know that. I invite them all to a place, put on that frequency, and say, do your thing, and I want to see this.
Yeah.
Right. So I have better data to understand how to recreate. And that's the other thing I do for a career is I recreate crime scenes, I recreate events. So that way I can put myself in the room and say, what evidence is there, what evidence is missing, so that way I can understand. In order to recreate this contact experience, I need more. And why? Because resonance shows that if you have more people vibrating at the same frequency, you can move objects. That's not paranormal. That's just human interaction. And my theory is, if I have more of the right people that are able to make contact, confirmed contact through these methods, and they're all in the same room, the chances of making contact are higher. And when you get these groups in CE5 and do that, it's fun, it's engaging, it's helpful. But how many of those are actually true investigators or experiencers? That's why regulation is needed, because we can't stop the people from doing these things. We don't want to discourage them from exploring the phenomenon. I hope to get that regulation from the government. That's why I'm doing it, because I don't see any evidence of anyone else doing it, and it doesn't look like the government's going to do it anytime soon.
No.
So there's Tessa in a nutshell. So for everybody who hates me, you misunderstand me, so you put in a good word for me.
All right.
All right. Tell everybody where they can find you. I'll bring your page up again here if there's anywhere specific that you want to bring. Actually, I did want to ask about this these symbols here. Is that light language, or is there a story behind that, or
no? It's just a bunch of symbols.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your logo.
Yeah,
I've done the 8 cross, 8-membered cross. I've doodled that for years and years and years. Now you've added some things to the 4 on the left, and I'm just wondering, what is that? Is that something significant?
So the symbol here?
No, the one at the right of the A, big A.
The right.
Oh,
that
right
symbol.
Yeah.
So that symbol is the oldest, earliest evidence of the word to describe God. Or the sky. So in Sumerian mythology, that was the symbol that they used to describe their creator. So the concept is if I'm going to accept religion and mythology as fact for evidence base, I have to consider the source, because if I look at Christianity today and
Right.
Catholic, right, there may be some truth in that, but I have to compare that to then to understand what happened in between, to figure out why we are the way that we are today. So for me, as far as evidence goes, considering the source, if that was accurate then, so the Sumerian mythology, Anunnaki, all that stuff is more likely to be accurate, because everything that we have moving forward is an interpretation of what that meant and changed over years of time. So that's the idea behind that.
Yeah, I because like I say, I've doodled that for years and years and years, and I finally I had gone to be regressed after a person in my support group said, "I've seen you before." I said, "Where? At a UFO conference, gas station, something?" No, I saw you on board a craft. And I didn't. I kind of blew it off, and then it was probably a year and a half later. Somebody said, "I've seen you before." I said, "Where?" UFO conference. No. I saw you sitting on this bench on board the craft. You were naked. You were freaking out, and they told me to go over to you to calm you down. So anyway, at that point, I decided to go get regressed, and I went to 3 different therapists. Had multiple past lives brought to the fore, but nothing to do with alien abductions or being involved with aliens. But one of the past lives that I had, I was in Samaria. I was a priest in Samaria, and so I the symbol. I happened to pick up a book on symbols, and in the book they show this symbol, and its origins are Sumerian. So it was like, talk about synchronicity.
So what's interesting is this power symbol in the middle is my experience. So this is how I got how I got pulled from this nuts and bolts world to this consciousness world, because this was a vision that I had through some psychogenic event. I don't know if it's human. I don't know if it's extraterrestrial. I don't know where it came from. All I know is that I had this moment near the winter solstice in 2018 where I could not stop seeing this. And in order for me to relax, I had to create it. Now, I create that in 2018, not knowing what's going on. This is at the time where I was being pushed out of MUFON and not knowing what I'm supposed to do, because I'm fighting to stay in for the people, right? Because I don't know what's going to happen to the people, because I'm no longer with MUFON. And then all of a sudden I get this epiphany and this idea with this translation of something I don't know what it means.
Yeah.
And I've always had this Experiencer Support Association thing in mind. And then I see TESA, right? TESA. And then I start to build off of that. But then over years, what I'm starting to learn is that the symbols and all these other things mean other things by other people that find it. Dave Portella, who's in the audience tonight, he's an astrologer as well, and he's been working on trying to understand it. And it actually shows 10 dimensions, and it shows a lot of things that I didn't know at the time. And it's weird because without changing it, it measures and it fits on maps and things. And there's a lot of synchronicities with this, but the common trend that we're starting to feel like is we feel like these are chairs and these are symbols and these are elements that are meant to represent characteristics by the symbolism behind it. And that's things that I can measure by figuring out what blue means and what these symbols mean, because they're familiar to me.
And these symbols are such, like in the Kabbalah, they talk about observing symbols, and it not only it creates something by looking at these things. If you've never read the Kabbalah, you should talk about symbols. I mean, it's fascinating.
Well, there's Kabbalah symbols here. There's Mason symbols here. There's Eastern Star symbols. There's Templar. There's Flat Earth stuff here. Like there's a lot of mythos in here.
Yeah.
The problem I have is I didn't know any of this until I started meeting people who recognized it and told me these things. So as an experiencer myself, the only evidence that I have is that I know that at that point, I knew absolutely nothing and why this happened. And I'm learning that it means a bunch of things that I've never learned before. And that concerns me because I don't know how that happened. And it could be a broadcast that everybody else got, and I just happened to be the one to tune into Angel Radio that day, and I got connected to it. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then but by broadcasting it and creating it, people are gravitating towards the symbol. And people that fit these characteristics within these what we're calling chairs, because there's characteristics with the there's background noise, characteristics with the symbols and the colors. You can characterize a personality, and you can also pinpoint a place in the zodiac, which is what Dave has been just showing to me, that this actually shows all signs of the zodiac. And what I'm learning is through gravitational pull, people resonating and coming to Tessa by joining it later and naturally, they actually have these characteristics in one of these seats. So I've always felt that my recruiting process has never been to ask. It's just the right people will come at the right time. And when that happens, it happens. And if we go back to this entire conversation about how we're on the same path, I'm blown away, you're blown away. Here we are over time that you were resonated with that. Is that a coincidence?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, to say the least.
And we're learning all the time. Hey, I want to thank you so much, Ryan. This has been fascinating, and I appreciate what you're doing as well. You know, we all have a mission, I think. You know, you wonder why or how you got involved with these kind of things. And, you know, I've many times I've said to myself, well, I'm done, I'm finished. And then I get pulled back into it in a big way. So that motivated me. I guess the COVID thing had, you know, it was a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing was it gave me time to write the book, and the bad thing was, unfortunately, a lot of people died, and we're still involved with all of this. But yeah, you can just click on that. You know, take you to Amazon, and there you have it. And appreciate any help people can give us. We depend on donations, and paperback is $20. If you have Kindle Prime, it's free. And you know, the other Kindle non-Prime is like $9.99. So we appreciate any help your audience can give us.
Perfect. We also do book reviews and stuff like that too. So I mean, I feel like you're connected to the admin email. So when we're done, if you sleep on this and have any thoughts, because I know there's a lot of you know, we're live on the spot, so we're having a conversation here. So if there's anything that really sticks out in your mind that you want to push forward, please email us, and then just and then we'll connect. And then in the meantime, I'm really happy to know, again, that there is other places that I can refer people to for the support part. And that's always been the challenge, because it's like, I got it. I know what the problem is. I know the solution, but I don't know anyone I can anyone that can help you. And yet, you know, I really need to have a connection with support we
can help you with that for sure.
Yeah. All right. Everybody, thanks for watching. We will see you guys next week. I will be doing my Uncharted case files will return in March. I'm just trying to figure out the format. And Les, thank you so much. And we'll see you again. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Keep your eyes in the sky and heed the world. That's it, everybody. That is a wrap. That is the end of it all. Thank you for joining me tonight. I look forward to seeing you back next week, where we'll continue to have this conversation deep down into the rabbit hole in which we call the ultra spectrum. Thanks for joining us. I said that already. Oh well, fuck it. Heed the world.